What's going on? Welcome into the Challenge Recap Show. It's going to be hosted by me, Zach Hummel, and Stephen Beaulieu is my co-pilot here. We're both big Challenge fans. Obviously, MTV The Challenge. What's going on, Steve?
Not too much. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So last night we had the second episode of the season. You're probably wondering why we didn't do a premiere episode, kind of going over the teams. We did, but I screwed up recording. So we're just going to pick up where we left off and just go to the second episode. Last night, as any follower knows, we had our first elimination challenge. Steven, what was your big takeaway from last night's episode?
I kind of liked how they sort of threw us a curveball there and gave us this changes everything moment early on there with the elimination. And now we see that two teams are going to be voted into every challenge. So, I mean, that's interesting right from the get-go. Nobody was expecting that. What did you think about that?
Yeah, usually they hold off the twist. Like TJ always goes, this will change the game. So change the game forever. And it happened in the second episode. For people that maybe didn't catch the episode, the worst team in the challenge will automatically go into the jungle, they're calling it this year. And the winning team will have to send in two teams, not just one. So it really makes it so you could have big teams battling each other. I also thought it was kind of weird that the two teams that get voted in by the winning team, they have to pick Skull, so it's pretty much just all luck. And that team, whoever loses that, will face the worst team. I don't know if I like that. I'd rather have just competition all the way through.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought that was a little bit weird the way that they did that. I was excited to see that there was a twist there originally, but I was thinking it would be better if they could somehow have it be like maybe a three-way competition to see who could
Yeah,
survive.
yeah, I totally agree. A three-way would be something they've never done. I think it would, people would have to prove themselves earlier. You could have Bananas going against Wes early on if they both get thrown in. I think that could be interesting, but that's not what they did. They did luck. Um, to start the episode, we kind of had, after the first challenge, people were hanging around the house, nothing really going down. But Wes and Johnny started to have a conversation. I thought it was funny. Wes in his interview said Wes needed Johnny and Johnny needed Wes. Like they were two collegiate rivals going at it. He's the most pompous guy on the show, and I think whenever he's on, he's one of the most entertaining guys.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's something that makes it great when the two of them are on the show together, and the way that they compete and the way they treat this like it's like a life and death situation. It's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, so one of the big talking points of the episode was, our man Leroy, who bartends at Britney Spears' show out in Vegas. He started having back pain, and it was stretching to his legs. So he went to the hospital. He thought everything was all right. His partner Avery was more nervous because she didn't want to get sent home, which I totally understand. But it came back that, the doctors didn't want him to compete. What do you think about that? It's a big loss early in the season.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big shock early on. I originally had Leroy and Avery winning it all, so it's disappointing to see that he had to go home. What I am worried about now at this point is I'm worried that they're going to bring in another Are You the One couple to fill in Leroy's spot, which I would totally hate. I hope that they don't replace him at all if they're going to go with, rather than have them go with an Are You the One cast team.
Yeah, I'm surprised, Leroy went home. Obviously, if the doctor tells him he can't compete, he can't compete. But he looked, he looked pretty fine walking around the house, and it's really a bummer for Avery, your teammate. I guess teammate, but it's also a rival who gets sent home early. You have to go home, so it kind of ruins your trip. Um, that's a big team, like you said. You had them winning, I think. So it's a big loss early in the season. Kind of opens it up for everyone else. As that guy Tom said, he's like, I don't care if they're out. One last team I have to beat to make the final elimination.
Yeah.
So Vince and Jenna were the team that won the first challenge. So they ended up having a little dinner out by the pool with each other, and they're both meatheads. It was one of the funniest, most awkward parts of the season so far. Vince asking her if she wanted some of the food on his plate and whatnot, and they kind of discussed who they wanted to send in. What do you think about that? It's kind of a new twist they threw in.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing that. I mean, the dinner itself is just so awkward. Vince is he's such a weird guy. Backing up a little bit, before that dinner started, I mean, it would drive me absolutely insane to see him walking around the house like he's the man. I mean, Jenna totally carried him in that first challenge. He's done nothing as far as the challenge goes. I think right now he's just getting really lucky that he's connected with bananas, so he's got some sort of he thinks he's got some sort of pull in the house, but I mean, it's just hilarious to watch the chemistry between those two because Jenna, I'm sure, just like everybody else, despises the guy.
Yeah, I mean, she was at the table and she mentioned she's like, I don't even know what this food is. She is honestly one of the dumbest people I've ever seen on TV, and that's saying a lot. I thought it was interesting how Vince brought the teams down to eat at his little throne, like Godfather style, and he was telling them who he's going to throw in, and he ended up throwing in Brandon and Brianna, who are an Are You the One couple. So I think that's a safe play. It doesn't really upset anyone in the house. And the next team they sent in was Devin and Cheyenne, which was another Are You the One team. So it's pretty obvious early on that these veterans, quote unquote, are trying to get the Are You the One cast out of there.
Yeah, we're gonna see what they're made of early and often here, as they'll probably go in as often as they can off the bat. No surprise there to see that they were going to toss in one of the teams. It was just a matter of who. And like you said, Vince sort of busting balls when he brought down the first team to tell them that just to tell them they weren't going to be the ones going in.
Yeah, and one of the storylines I actually enjoyed during the episode was Johnny Riley and Jessica, who were the worst team in the first challenge, so they were automatically in. Jessica's the worst. I mean, she just goes around the house pouting, like telling Johnny that she needs more support from him. Which, you're on a TV show. He's out there to get the money. He could give two shits what you have to do. But I also thought it was funny how Tony was trying to get with her, and she has a boyfriend. And that whole fiasco. What do you think about that?
I thought I have a couple points I wanted to bring up about this. First of all, for some reason, to me, that phone call she made to her boyfriend, it seemed like it was awfully staged. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was fake as well. Because usually they put a voice, have the person's voice on the re-air of the episode, and we didn't hear that. And it didn't seem like there was enough air in between her answering the questions and telling the boyfriend that she was breaking up with him. I also thought it was kind of fake.
Yeah, to me, it seems like it was something that she probably told the producers that she wanted to break up with her boyfriend, and they came up with the idea to sort of reenact a phone call that she might have actually had, but it definitely looks like it wasn't taking place when they were filming. And phone calls is something that we've never seen in the challenge before. That's more of a real world thing where we see them on the phone. So I wasn't buying that was real. And I just thought it was that whole thing between her and Tony was hilarious. I mean, just Tony being Tony, he was crazy. I mean, he didn't know if he shit his pants. He didn't know if they hooked up. I mean, he didn't know what was going on.
That was one of the funniest scenes when he woke up the next morning. He's at the breakfast table with, I think it was Sarah and a couple other people, and he just doesn't know what happened last night. I mean, the last thing we see, he's naked in her bed, but they're kind of sleeping apart. They're not, cuddling or, having sex, obviously. So, Tony, like Tony just makes girls want to break up with their boyfriends. There's something about the guy. I don't know if it's his charm or he's got pretty good looks. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of goes about during the season if he can get any other girls under his spell.
Right, definitely. I think he must have thought in his head that they did have sex because he's not used to being turned down. That was probably
Yeah.
like one of the first times he's ever actually been turned down. So that was funny to see. He probably can't comprehend that she didn't want to hook up with him. I mean, Tony, he needs sex to survive, like you and I need air to breathe. This guy just needs to have sex.
Yeah. Did I go blank there for a second?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. We can just edit this part out. Yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is before I think Wes is kind of pulling strings behind the scenes because he's in Tony's ear talking about Jessica. He called her. I have my note here that he called her a moped, riding a moped, because you don't you're kind of embarrassed about it, but you still tell your friends. I think that's what he said, and he said Jessica's kind of a moped, that she's not wicked hot, but she's not wicked ugly. She's kind of in the middle there. I thought that was an interesting term. I never heard that before.
Yeah, that was definitely funny. And speaking about Jessica's looks, I actually thought that she looked she looked very good last night's episode. I don't know if she trimmed down or what, but she was looking pretty hot last night, I thought.
Yeah, like you said, it seems staged that they maybe gave her a makeover, just so she can have her little storyline there of trying to woo Tony and Tony trying to woo her, and then her breaking up with her boyfriend. That's why I didn't really like that storyline. It seemed kind of contrived, like you mentioned with the phone call. Like there's this random phone just in the corner of the house where she makes a call to her boyfriend. No one else is making calls. That was pretty weird. Um, well, we can talk about the jungle. Obviously, Brianna and that guy Brandon, they were on the lucky side, and they didn't pull the black skull. So Devin and Cheyenne were going to go against Johnny Riley and Jessica. Um, Real battle of the Titans in the first jungle. And the challenge they had to do was they had to take pots, and they had to kind of shimmy their way using their backs and legs up two parallel, I don't know what you would even call it, walls, and you had to dump the pot at the top. What do you think about that challenge? Do you think it was hard? It seemed pretty tiring from just watching it
Yeah,
on TV.
yeah, it definitely seemed like it was a difficult challenge. I think at one point there was it Cheyenne was complaining that her legs were on fire basically, and she couldn't. She was having difficulty holding herself up. To me, it seemed like it was something that was very hard and definitely took a lot of leg strength. And I'm sure their legs must have been on fire trying to climb up that wall a bunch of times.
Yeah, I actually gained a little bit of respect for Jessica. Johnny and Jessica came out on top. They came from behind too, because Devin and Cheyenne, they got their pot up first, but then they kind of, like you mentioned, they kind of hit a wall while they were going up with their second and third. And Johnny Riley and Jessica kind of fit the storyline of the episode. They rose up from the ashes and came back to win, kind of as a redemption story. But I thought Devin actually was pretty good. He was at the end. He was lifting Cheyenne, trying to get her up high enough to dump the pot, and she just couldn't do anything. Like you said, her legs were dead. So another Are You the One team out as the first elimination.
Yeah, not for lack of effort though. They actually, they came in, they tried as hard as they could, so at least they have that going for them. But something I did want to mention was I thought I think it's kind of interesting that Johnny and Jessica hate each other so much, but yet when it comes down to it, they can perform so well together as a team. Uh, Johnny made that comment after that. He's like, I'm never going to talk to her, I'm not even going to acknowledge her. But when it comes down to crunch time, I mean, they just forget all that, and they really communicate well in the challenge. So, I think that that's sort of an interesting dynamic that they just hate each other so much, but are still able to work so well together.
Yeah, I think some of these rivals are contrived by MTV just to get, some of the best teams into the competition. But I think Jessica and Johnny literally hate each other. They're in the same Real World season. They showed clips tonight. I mean, last night during the episode of Johnny calling Jessica fat right to her face, pretty much throughout their whole Real World season. So yeah, I don't think these two like each other. But like you said, money kind of squashes all that, and if you can come together and perform, that's all that really matters on that front.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be big for them that they sort of got that confidence that they know they can work well together now. Um, they went in there and sort of proved themselves too. So, I mean, other teams are seeing that they're working well together. So they might be, sort of off the radar of getting voted back in there.
Yeah, it's always good to go into the first jungle and prove yourself, because then other teams are, once you're in there, it's a whole different story. Once you're in there, you earn respect when you come back, no matter who you beat. because you were in that pressure situation, you performed. But I also thought it was a big win for Johnny Bananas because Johnny Riley is one of his biggest cogs. I think he said during the episode that Johnny Riley's, the most loyal guy in the game to him. So now that Leroy's out, who is also loyal to Bananas, it was good for Riley to stick around. So Bananas can kind of still run the house the way he wants to run it.
Definitely. I thought, I was thinking when they told Leroy he was going home, one of my first thoughts was, oh, that's a blow to Team Bananas right there. So I mean, Johnny must have been Johnny Bananas must have been very happy that Johnny Riley stepped up and stayed in the game so he could have him on his side at least since he lost Leroy.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything in last night's episode. They didn't go out and drink that much. It was more just hanging around the house. Um, do you have any thoughts on the next episode? I didn't actually see the preview for the next one. I don't know if you did. Um,
No, same here. I actually didn't see what's coming up next week.
yeah, hopefully they go out and then we have another challenge and whatnot. But this season is building up to be one of the better ones so far. I think the amount of good players and good teams in this season is kind of unmatched in the last 3 or 4. So it'll be really interesting to see when teams actually have to try, because they're worried about themselves with that 3-team elimination kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I already think, we're only 2 episodes in, but I already think this is 10 times better than last season's Bloodlines challenge. I'm really enjoying this, and I'm interested to see. I mean, I know TJ's going to pull another "this changes everything" moment out soon, so I'm interested to see where they're going to go now because there's going to be more than one big twist to the season.
Yeah, they, you kind of want to keep your cards close to your vest. But they did have a twist in the second episode, so I wouldn't put it past MTV and TJ Lavin to bring another twist in to kind of change the game, turn the game upside on its head. So I think that's about it. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll recap. We'll try to do a recap every week of every episode. Hopefully that we'll get this out tomorrow on Friday, so everyone can listen if they miss the episode. All right, great. Thanks, Steve.
All right, see you next time.
Yep.